Simulator games. You know how sometimes you feel like your full-time job isn't keeping you quite busy enough? You'll work your 40 plus hours a week and think, I should really be using my downtime to manage a grocery store, or I should start a power washing business. Or an additional third option is stay comedically consistent with the rule of 3. You've certainly heard someone say, I already have a job. The last thing I want to do is play a game that gives me another job and then go chop trees in old school RuneScape for 17 hours like that's not job adjacent. At their core, all video games are simulator games, and while that may not be true, it sure sounds profound. The key is to find a simulation that best speaks to you, and perhaps the best place to start is in a genre that feels the need to have the word simulator in almost every single game title, and boy are there a lot of them. With so many options available to you, how are you ever supposed to not only find one you like, but know if it's even going to be any good? Well, that's where I come in. I decided to put in the work, time, and money to try and find the best simulator games on the market. I played 20 simulator games for 2 hours each and summed up each game in a quick, thorough, and quite frankly sexy review based on my experience. Very quickly, I just want to get out ahead of a few things. Every single one of the games in this list is far bigger than their first 2 hours, so what I'm really reviewing here are the quality of the first impressions each game makes, what kind of potential I think they show, and just how good the overall hook is for the game. I kind of feel like if you can't convince me to keep playing your game after 2 hours, it probably needs a little work. But this is all also very subjective. Maybe I didn't like a game you like, but should we really fight about it? Yes. Yes, we should. If you disagree with me about any of my opinions, please approach me in public and initiate combat with me. That's the only way to truly settle this. I also stream most of these games over at twitch.tv/jgig, so if you ever want to come hang out and see the full 2 hours of these games and hear my thoughts in live time, or listen to my chat abuse the fart sound effect so aggressively I have to turn them off for a while, come on over. All that being said, let's get to the games. Streamer Life Simulator 2 was quite a bit more in depth than I was expecting, and I liked it a lot. I thought it was going to just be all focused around sitting at a computer, maybe some light home management, and just dealing with stream related things, but it's got a surprising amount of stuff going on here. You can do Uber Eats as a job to make money, there are several stores in the town that have different purposes, there are random events, it seems very ambitious. There are home upgrades, vehicle upgrades, PC and streaming equipment upgrades, actual character upgrades, and a lot more. This 2 hours flew by and I actively wanted to keep playing it when the time was up. It gets pretty deep into the details as well, with selecting your streaming category, setting titles, dealing with sponsors and scammers and trolls. You have to maintain your energy and stress levels with there being a sleep mechanic as well as needing to eat. There's a much bigger emphasis on the life part of the title of the game than I thought there was going to be. There are playable games in the actual game for you to play when you stream. One is an idle game, which if you're a fan of, I have a video just like this about 20 idle games that I'll link below. But there's also like a Counter-Strike game that gets easier to play the more you upgrade your mouse and keyboard and stuff. It's pretty cool. I'll also say it's quite a bit less hectic than other simulator games I've played. Several of the ones we'll talk about on this list are pretty chaotic at times, and this one feels a bit easier to just chill and play. As much as I enjoyed my first 2 hours in this one, I do wonder what kind of long-term playability it has. It's also concerning that it hasn't gotten any updates since May, and I'm recording this at the end of September. I do think there's a lot of potential for this to be an excellent sim game, so hopefully the devs are still around and working on it and it's just been quiet because there's a big update coming or something. Either way, based on my 2 hours, it seems very fun, so if the devs haven't abandoned it, I think it's worth checking out. Next is Bum Simulator, and at the end of playing this one, I said to my stream, I think this is the best made, least interesting game I've ever played. Like, it's the best combination of those two things I think I've ever seen. It's among the more polished simulator style games I've played. It has voice acting, the city's pretty good, there's a skill system in building, and obviously a lot of thought, time, and effort that went into this game, but it just didn't do anything for me. I don't think I've ever played a simulator game that left me so uninterested in progressing. It's pretty heavily story driven, and the story could be interesting enough, but unfortunately the majority of the story is yelled at you by a shopping cart, so it's kind of hard to get invested.
I'm Carl Cartman, your best pal!
The humor's whatever. Several people in the stream over at twitch.tv/jgigs commented that it felt very try-hard edgy, and it just kind of misses a lot of the time, at least for me, and everyone that was watching me play. I think if you're looking for a typical simulator game experience, you're not really going to find it here. This seems much more like a story-driven RPG of sorts using a simulator game template. Again, I can appreciate the time and effort that seems to have gone into this one, and if you told me you enjoyed it, I don't guess I would think that was crazy or anything, but it really just didn't do anything for me. This was one of the harder 2 hours to get through for me for sure, probably my least favorite game in the video. Moving along, we have Rise of Gun, and this one was slightly different than what I was expecting, and I had a very interesting experience with it. I want to say before I start getting into the details that I do like this game a lot, and it's something I will continue playing, and I do recommend you check it out if what you see looks interesting to you, but I do have a few gripes that I also think are valid. So this is going to be an interesting review. I really like what I can tell the idea is here, but I feel like it needs a lot of tweaks. The early game just doesn't feel quite as streamlined as I think it should, and if the game is supposed to be hard, I have no problem with that, but for as involved as the tutorial seems to be and as much text as it throws at you as you go through it, I feel like it left a lot of questions unanswered. And I think that perhaps brings us to the heart of the issues that I have have with the game. It just doesn't explain itself fully or very well at times. One example I can give for this is that one of the missions you'll get at a certain point is to build the water storage. The building in the game all seems to be predetermined, so you'll see green spots for the things you can build in their location, and it's just a matter of whether or not you can afford to build them. You'll notice pretty quickly there is no spot in the build menu for a water storage, and this is because it's hidden under piles of trash in your shop that you need to clear out, which I think in principle wouldn't really be a problem, but it's the having to guess part that makes it tough. It also costs a weirdly high amount of money to just clear out the trash in the store, so I spent almost $600 clearing out spots and never found the water storage. I found the food storage and I assumed the water storage was next to it, but I was too broke to clear it out at that point. This, in conjunction with the fact that when you're broke, there's pretty much nothing to do but wait on someone to come get their gun repaired so you can make a little money, makes me think a system where it doesn't cost money to clear out the trash, but rather it just takes time for you to do would have been a better decision here. This gives you the satisfaction of cleaning up your space, which a lot of us really enjoy, and giving us something to do while we wait on people to come get their guns repaired. I did a video like this on cozy games recently, and one of them is called Spirit Tea, and it sort of has this idea going on where you can clean while you're waiting on customers and it just takes a while to clean. I have a couple of other minor gripes, like how much trash the customers leave in the store being outrageous, and the hunger meter depleting far too quickly, but there are also a lot of things I really like. The overall gameplay loop conceptually is really fun, and this is definitely a game I could just zone out and play and lose several hours without realizing. It's hard to get rolling initially, but once you do, it's really fun. Building the guns is really satisfying and sometimes goofy. Repairing guns for customers is a simple little game, but also very satisfying. You have a guy you can send out on expeditions around the map to find money and gun parts and experience, or nothing sometimes, as I learned the hard way. Just flushed $84 down the toilet. The little city is super cool. I love the aesthetic and the general concept. I did find myself very interested in progressing and getting the place cleaned up, and even seeing if over time I was able to have an impact on the way the city looked as a whole. You have a home base separate from your shop that I assume you'd be able to build into and customize to some degree at some point as well. In the build menu, there's a spot out back for a motorcycle, and I don't know what exactly happens when you build that, but I definitely want to know. You can apparently unlock a shooting range for your customers at a certain point. There seems to be a ton of content here, and again, once you get rolling, it's really fun. You just kind of have to trudge through that early game a bit to get there, but I'd say I think it's worth it. I recorded this on September 24th, and it apparently just got an update on the 22nd, so the devs seem very active and involved, and I'll be very interested in seeing how this game continues to develop. All in all, it's a recommend for sure. Just be aware that the early game is a little rocky. Next up, we have Laundry Store Simulator, and this is such an easy play. Time flew by. That's not to say it's an easy game. It brings all the same stresses that a sim game tends to bring in the early stages, trying to manage all the different things happening at once, but it flows well and it's easy to just vibe out while you play. Progression feels very smooth. There seems to be a lot to unlock and customize as you go. There really wasn't anything I didn't like about this one. I actually wanted to keep playing it after the 2 hours was up, but I needed to keep getting through the list of games I had, so we moved on. There are a couple of light storylines that I think are nice little additions without detracting from the expected gameplay loop. You have your main laundry area that you fill up with regular machines and then can eventually start hiring employees, and the employees are actually good. Sometimes these games have employees and they feel more like a money pit until you get a bunch of levels in them, but these made a pretty immediate and noticeable impact, well worth the investment. You can unlock a coin machine area where customers do their own laundry, so a little more passive income. The blueprint area shows all the different spots there are to unlock, and it's pretty big, so it seems like this one could keep you interested for a while, and again, I really like the gameplay loop. It's interesting enough to make me want to keep going, but not so stressful I couldn't just relax and vibe. I also have to say the music track here is just a banger. It's one track, but somehow I wasn't sick of it at all at the end of the 2 hours, which is saying something for me. All in all, this is an excellent simulator game. I definitely think it's one worth adding to your list. Up next, we have Bookshop Simulator, and this is one of the better put together simulator games I think I've ever played. It was clearly made by people that play these types of games, and it will be very evident very quickly that that's the case. There is a lot of quality of life here that individually might not sound like much, but it all adds up and makes for a very smooth gameplay experience. There are a lot of little things done with the building mechanics, like pointing an item at a wall makes it flush with the wall. Or you can hold a button and aim at the bottom corner of a piece you've already placed to snap the new item to it, and just tons of little things like this spread throughout the game. It's also one of the only sim games I've ever played where I didn't want to change the default controls. It all just makes sense and plays very well. On top of that, it's just a lot of fun and very well paced. You start with a little bookshop in France, and in your map you see you're eventually working toward opening new stores in Paris and Japan, and I assume over time they'll be adding different locations around the world. And each shop you unlock also unlocks new items you're able to sell. You start out with books, obviously, but in time you can unlock comic books, manga, board games, and apparently a lot more to come. One of the devs actually randomly ended up in my stream for a while, so I got a bit of insight into how the game was made and what their plans are. Shout out to Steve. And also that they have a lot of big plans for the game moving forward. You can have pets in your shop, and yes, you can pet them, so another win there. This is genuinely one of the best simulator games I think I've ever played. It doesn't have that clunky feel like you're familiar with if you play these types of games. And again, the amount of quality of life here is unmatched. You generally have to download several mods to get a simulator game to play like this one plays on a fresh download. It's also really fun to see the names of all the books. They're all silly versions of books you've heard of. For example, instead of Fahrenheit 451, it's Celsius 232.778. I got several good laughs as I unlocked more books, and I'm excited to see comic books and board games as well when I unlock those. I will definitely keep playing this one. It's absolutely one of the best games in this video, and if you're looking for one to play, you should add this to your list for sure. Next is Saloon Simulator, and this is a fantastic game. It far exceeded my expectations. This is another example of a very well-polished game with a ton of depth and attention to detail. You never really know what you're getting with these types of games. Sometimes it will just be a sloppily thrown together game using the same template and assets as all the other sloppily thrown together games. And then every now and then you get one that is something much more than that, and Saloon Sim is definitely one of those. It's got a pretty involved story in addition to really fun gameplay and management options. It seems there will be quite a bit of long-term playability here, as I get the impression that not only are you going to be working to improve your saloon, but also the rest of the town you're in. The systems also go pretty deep. You actually make every single drink and every single meal that gets ordered. It's not just like someone comes in and orders a cocktail and you click them and then click the cocktail and you're done. You pour the liquor, add any other ingredients, lemon slices, ice, etc., and then stir it or shake it or whatever else there is to be done, and then serve it. You cook the meals to be served as well, and right as I was hitting the end of my 2 hours, one of the rooms that I have for rent was fixed, and I would have been able to start renting it out as well. There are also obviously several other systems in place here that I didn't unlock in my 2 hours. It's a nicely paced game, and when the saloon gets busy, you really feel the pressure of a full house. It's really cool. It's very smooth, there's lots of quality of life, the voice acting is decent, and overall the game just looks really nice. I love a good Wild West vibe, and I think this game did a really good job with it. Even if there was no story at all and it was only the actual saloon management parts of the game, I'd still think it was excellent, but the fact that they've so seamlessly integrated a story that appears to have so much depth into the game is really cool, and I actually found myself interested in what would happen next. I'm very excited to keep playing this one for sure, and I think it's one of the better games I played for the video. I'm very impressed with what they've done with this idea. Coming up next, we have Storage Hunter Simulator, and it's another very fun, very surprising game for the genre. The gameplay loop starts off fairly simple, but I can tell as you get further there will be more and more things to do, and it's a pretty nice, chill play. A few things really surprised me with this one. For starters, the driving is actually much better than I was expecting, and I'm very impressed with how good the city looks. It's a pretty believable little area. The lighting is great, and it's all spaced and laid out in a way that actually makes it feel familiar depending on where you're from. It makes the whole experience a lot better in my opinion. You basically sign up for local auctions and then go engage in some bidding wars against some other randoms, and if you're willing to stick it out, you'll win and take whatever was up for grabs. And it's not always going to turn a profit, so you have to be really mindful of what you're doing. You might just think the game wants you to win every auction, but it does a pretty nice job of balancing things out so there's some risk involved. There are also difficulty settings, so if you're just more interested in winning auctions and making money and progressing through the game without any real competition or risk, you can play on easy mode. And if you want something a little more immersive and realistic and challenging, there are those options too. Another fun little mini game of sorts is trying to stack the stuff from the storage units into your truck. I don't even know if this was meant to present the challenges it does, but I personally got really addicted to getting as much stuff in my truck as possible every run. The physics are a little weird. Sometimes you drop something in the truck and everything explodes out of it, which is just so much fun, but after you get the hang of the physics and stuff, it happens less and less. I also think you'll eventually be able to buy other vehicles with better storage and perhaps other benefits. There are also different houses around the map you can purchase and add things to, and right at the end of my 2 hours, I unlocked the ability to start purchasing my own pawn shops and selling stuff from the auctions instead of just having to take whatever the current pawn shop owner pays for it. There are different tools to unlock that let you identify more expensive items, pick locks to chests and containers, and fix broken items so they're worth more, with the ability to upgrade tools as you go so you can continue to increase the quality of items you can work with without having to get other experts involved and costing you money. Overall, it's a pretty cool, chill little gameplay loop and a fairly polished game with a surprising amount of attention paid to the way the environment looks and is laid out, and it's a really fun, easy game to play. I do recommend it. Here we have Parcel Simulator, and this one offered one of the more unique experiences I had making this video. It's still familiar as far as the general simulator game concept, but the way it executed is very interesting. It's very quiet and tedious and repetitive, but I don't mean any of those things as a criticism. It's very relaxing and easy to play, while also still requiring you to pay attention to what you're doing and make adjustments to your workflow as you progress to implement the new tools and things you unlock as you go. You're basically just identifying whether or not packages meet the criteria to be shipped, and this is dictated by whether or not they have the correct country and flag, the appropriate transport type, and if the serial number is correct, with more criteria being added as you progress. It sounds simple enough, and it is, but you'll be surprised how easy it is to make a mistake once you get rolling. This game does not deliver the same type of chaos that something like Waterpark Sim or similar games do. I honestly found it very relaxing. I also realized near the end of my 2 hours that I was quickly becoming addicted to the gameplay loop. And with all the different conveyor belts and scanners and scales you can buy to automate some and perhaps eventually all of the process, I was really wanting to keep playing to work out a fully automated warehouse. It's a very well-designed, well-paced game. I'm very impressed with it. I've heard a lot of people say they haven't tried any of the popular simulator games because they seem so stressful. So if you're one of those people, Parcel Simulator is definitely one for you to check out. You operate exclusively at your own pace, so there's no overwhelming feeling of your shop being full of customers and your shelves being empty, or having 2 people drowning and 15 people in line to get into your water park when all you want to do is repair the pool or anything like that. It's a very smooth, polished, easy experience that I'd assume will ramp up a little as you go, but it eases you into the loop so nicely I'm not even sure you'd notice. I highly recommend this one. It's one of my favorites from the entire video. Next we have Animal Shelter Simulator 2, and this one's real cute, man. There are a lot of things to like about what they're trying to do with this game. It feels like a game that's still relatively early in the development cycle, and I think there are a lot of tweaks that need to be made to the overall smoothness and flow of the gameplay. But it's just so cute and charming that honestly, if you love animals and like the idea of a simulator game like this, the shortcomings won't really feel like that big of a deal. At least they didn't for me. I'll say there seems to be quite a bit more to keep up with in this game than a lot of the other ones we're looking at for this video, so don't let how cute it is trick you into thinking it's easy. As you grow the shelter and start getting more animals to take care of, I could see this feeling pretty overwhelming pretty quickly. I never had more than 3 animals at a time, I don't think, and even then it was like, man, there's a lot to do. Not only do you have to maintain the hunger, thirst, happiness, comfort, entertainment, and overall health of every individual animal you have in the shelter, you also have to stay on top of expanding the shelter, getting more cages, sending cars out to get new animals, getting each animal through their multiple breakthrough points to get them ready for adoption, manage the adoptions, manage employees, and somehow still find time to decorate and do the other things you may want to do. You can take animals to the park, which again is just a really cute little ordeal. They trot along happily on the leash, play fetch, and just enjoy being out. They're always very happy when they get adopted. There are a lot of, man, this just feels nice kind of moments in this game. I also noticed an option to adopt a pet for yourself, so if you see an animal you really like, you can keep it as your own pet. There is a little bugginess and overall clunkiness, as I mentioned before. I had some issues putting a pet down at the beginning of the game. I had some weirdness with a paintbrush at one point. I bought a ball to play fetch with a dog, and it immediately glitched into a wall and stayed there for the rest of the 2 hours. The inventory was a little annoying to manage, and if you don't have an empty hand, you can't do most things, including talking to the people that come in to adopt. To close out my 2 hours, there was some special event it had me do, but it didn't really explain any of the details, so I just sort of had to wing it. The game definitely needs some work, but it's also very cute and fun enough, so again, I'd say if you're just an animal lover and also someone who likes these types of games, it's at least worth a look. It does appear there's an abundance of stuff to do in this game, with plenty more on the way. The devs do seem active. There was an update not long before I played, and several more on the way from the sounds of it. I don't think I'll play it again because half the games on this list are all fighting aggressively for my attention and doing it a little better than this game did, but I still do think you should check it out if what you've seen has done anything for you. Up next, we have Police Simulator, and we'll start off by saying this one is incredibly slow paced, so I think you're going to have to really be into the concept of this one to be into it at all. To give it some credit, there's a decent amount of attention to detail here, but the game has a lot of flaws that really make it hard to recommend. The different tools you can equip seem to have a lot of issues associated with them, as more often than not they just wouldn't work. For seemingly no reason, I would just stop being able to use my camera or radar gun and have to reload the game to be able to do so. One of the problems with all the little details in this game is that the tutorials don't really do a good job, in my opinion, of walking you through what you need to be doing. I had to deal with a car accident, which involved interviewing the people involved, taking pictures of the scene, figuring out who was at fault and if anyone had broken any laws, writing the reports, sending them on their way, and towing the vehicles that needed towing. It just kind of throws you in and is like, here, figure it out. And then my camera stopped working, so I wasn't even able to take pictures. In the interviews, they all just basically repeat that they don't know what happened, so I don't even know what the point of that is. Also, everyone in this world is apparently 6'4" and has a concealed carry permit. That doesn't really matter, but I do think it's kind of silly. I actually like the driving. After about an hour, I unlocked the patrol car shifts, and those get a little more enjoyable, but that might also just be because you're getting to drive. You absolutely do need to respect it though. They take the car accident stuff very seriously, so be real sure you don't bump any other cars or anything, because that's just going to basically ruin the rest of your day dealing with all that. Another issue is that the game will highlight someone and explain that they're breaking the law, sort of triggering a tutorial of sorts, but the problem is sometimes it's just straight up lying. Like here it tells me this car has a smoking tailpipe, but it doesn't. So am I supposed to still pull them over for a smoking tailpipe? Or this car that it said had a broken windshield, but it didn't? It's kind of weird. I think it just needs a totally overhauled, more in-depth tutorial. I think for the amount of detail involved here, they should really have you being trained by another officer for like your first week in the game. I think you should be tagging along with other cops on their shifts, having the game explain what they're doing and why, and then slowly getting you involved in the tasks until you have a general idea of everything that's expected of you. To just dump you in and have them be like, hey, it's your first day, go do cop stuff, is a little lazy for what the game is asking of you. I could see this get more interesting as you progress and unlock more stuff, but I also think it needs a lot more polish and attention. You gotta work these bugs out, you gotta be more clear about what we're supposed to be doing, and I think you gotta figure out a way to make it a little more interesting in general. And again, I think a complete overhaul of the way the tutorial works would really go a long way. Not only would it explain the game in better detail and at a better pace, but it immediately gives you a good first milestone to make it to, being your first solo shift. There's also a lot of DLC, like an aggressive amount of DLC, and I really just don't think that should be happening when the base game is in the state it's in. It doesn't feel anywhere close to a finished game, both in the content and in just the general polish and smoothness of gameplay. At the very least, you gotta work out some of the more egregious bugs before you start dropping expansion packs. I don't really think I can recommend this one as it is. If they'll slow down on DLC and just work on the game itself, I do think it has potential. I think it's also multiplayer, so it could be really cool to have a friend to play with and y'all are partners just doing your thing, assuming everything works as intended. But again, until they do some work on it, I don't think I can recommend it. Next, we have PowerWash Simulator, and this is one that maybe you haven't played, but have had at least 2 people tell you is really good. I had this on my wish list forever and would just never pull the trigger on it, and then around my birthday randomly one year, I got an email from Steam that Trav had gifted it to me. So shout out Trav. This game is pretty much exactly what you think it's gonna be in the sense of what you're doing, but I assure you it's more fun than you think it's gonna be. There's just something so satisfying and addictive to this gameplay loop. And it's one of the best games in my Steam library to just relax and play while I watch some YouTube or listen to music or something. There's absolutely no stress here. You're never racing against the clock, unless you want to play the timed game mode. And there are never any moments of being overwhelmed by too much happening at once or anything like that. It's 100% a go at your own pace type of experience. There's plenty to unlock in the way of pressure washers and attachments and different skins for your tools. Aside from the career mode, there are several other modes to play, and there are so many fun additional stages to play as well, with an insane amount of DLC, including Shrek, Back to the Future, SpongeBob, etc. I personally completed the entire Final Fantasy VII pack of stages that included 7th Heaven, the Midgar City model, the Scorpion Sentinel boss, as well as several others. The career mode alone is more than worth the price of the game, but there's so much extra content included even before you start purchasing DLC. It's an incredibly polished game, or should I say power washed game. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Please, thank you. Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Lots of good quality of life, holiday events, cosmetics. There's just such a surprising amount of things happening in this game about pressure washing. I had about 45 hours of playtime before I started making this video, and I'm sure I'll put a bunch more in moving forward. It's always an excellent game to have in the library for those nights where you're sort of in that can't choose a game limbo where you'll browse Steam for 3.5 hours and then end up playing nothing and just going to bed. PowerWash Simulator has saved me from that on more than one occasion. I definitely think you should look into this one and see if it does anything for you, as well as browse all the different collabs they've done over the years, as they've almost certainly made some content for something you're a fan of. This definitely goes in the highly recommended pile. Moving along, we have Ranch Simulator, and I really enjoyed this one a lot. I would definitely continue to play it. It has one of the better tutorials of any game in the list in my opinion. It does a great job of introducing you to all the different systems, getting you familiar with the town and what kinds of things you'll be doing, and then just sort of leaving you alone and letting you figure out exactly what you want to do and how you want to achieve it. And once the tutorial is over, it's just over. Then you're just a person with all this land and you have to come up with your own plans from then on out. Everything is fairly intuitive, it plays smooth enough. The only real complaint I have is the driving. The driving is awful. It feels like you're trying to drive in an online game, but you're playing with 500 ping. It really isn't a huge deal though, you won't be doing a ton of driving, at least not for a while. And it's not even bad in the way that it makes it unfun, it's just really bad driving. I don't know what else to say about it. I really like the building system in this game, and that there are prefabs you can place down and then place materials into to complete, or you can lay your own builds down piece by piece and do the same thing. I like this type of system because you can sort of plan your entire build without wasting any resources or anything. I also appreciate the little detail of when you're placing the boards, you actually have to walk around and place them roughly where they'd go. You don't just dump them all in one spot. It's not super detailed, but just detailed enough to add a little immersion. I really just think they seem to have struck a nice balance in all the different systems here, of feeling immersive enough to be entertaining without becoming too tedious. The little cart you start with is super handy. The way the item placement system works in the game allows you to really load it up efficiently. There is of course farming, animal husbandry, hunting, building, bigger builds to work toward as you grow to make your life easier, farm equipment, and the devs have their roadmap showing that fishing will be added soon, as well as some new building stuff and economy updates. There are new cars to purchase and a lot of different animals and crops to work toward being able to manage. There's quite a bit going on here. I was really surprised how much I liked this one. I found myself very interested in continuing to play and seeing what I'd be able to build over time, so I think I will more than likely keep playing it for a while after this video. It's a very easy play, so if you're looking for a little world to get immersed in for a bit and just chill and build yourself a ranch, I think this one is definitely worth a look. You'll know well within the Steam refund window if this is something you'll want to keep playing, so it's pretty low risk to check it out. Moving along, we have Lawn Mowing Simulator, and much like PowerWash Simulator, this game is exactly what it says it is. You start out with a standard riding mower and some basic equipment, and as you grow your business, you start unlocking bigger and more complex jobs. You can start hiring employees and adding mowers to your garage so that you can send them out for some of the yards you don't want to cut yourself. There does seem to be quite a bit more business management here than something like PowerWash Sim, but it's not so much that I think it should turn you away if you're not into that stuff. This game is 99% mowing lawns. I don't personally think it really seems to have any shortcomings, but I will say this one doesn't do it for me in the same way that PowerWash Simulator does. I think they're both very similar in this space in the sense of what they offer and being what you think they'll be, but for whatever reason, Lawnmower Sim just does not scratch the same itch for me. Again, at no fault of its own. It plays very smooth, it's very polished, I didn't encounter any bugs or issues or things that I thought were poorly designed. There seems to be a lot here to progress into in the way of new mowers and equipment, as well as expanding your business and buying new HQs and landing yourself some bigger jobs. There is a little bit of challenge here in that you have to be careful about damaging flower beds and how sharp and frequently you're turning your mower, potentially leaving ruts in the ground and stuff. You'll receive fines for damaging flower beds and lawns, and I imagine in the more expensive jobs that adds up. It has a decent amount of DLC, so if you make your way through the base game and want more lawns to mow, they're available. There honestly isn't a ton else to say about this game. Like I said, it pretty much is exactly what it's telling you it is. If you're looking for an experience like this and PowerWash Simulator didn't quite do it for you, I'd imagine this one would. And if you think this just looks like something you'd like in general, you almost certainly will. Next, we have Gas Station Simulator, and there are different levels to how premium these simulator games feel. And while it doesn't necessarily always dictate how good the game ends up being, it's a pretty good indicator, and this is definitely one of the most premium feeling games on this list. This is such a well put together, polished, well thought out game, and it's very clear that the goal here was to make a good game over anything else. It looks great, there is so much going on, but it's so well paced and laid out for you that the game just gradually keeps expanding in a way that, although at times can feel a little overwhelming as you get really busy, doesn't feel unnatural or like the game is just bloated with things to keep you busy. You're gonna struggle for a while financially, which I honestly really appreciate. It can get kind of boring to start one of these games and basically just be rich in a few hours, but here you'll have to make decisions about how much fuel to order and when, which products to stock, what price you can afford to sell fuel at, which upgrades are really worth it right now, and so on. I also think this game has one of the best early game cleanup phases of anything on this list. You have quite a bit of land here that hold many more things than just a gas station. You have a warehouse out back where you'll take various orders that needs to be cleaned up. There's a mechanic shop that I unlocked right around the time I hit the 2-hour mark that opens up a whole new sector of gameplay. There's an old rundown car wash behind the station, and according to the menus, quite a bit more. You will eventually be able to start hiring employees to help you manage everything. They've also gamified so many different parts of the game. Almost everything has its own minigame, but it's not annoying or tedious at all. None of them are super involved, they're just there to give you the opportunity to make the most of each thing you do. So the more accurately you fuel a vehicle, the better your tip. And the better you can get on the register, the quicker you can get off the register and back to cleaning and working on all the other things there are to work on. You also have an excavator, and there are sand piles all over your property you have to get rid of, and occasionally new ones to get rid of as you're in the desert and there will be sandstorms. There's a pretty good storyline with voice acting and cutscenes and random events, a ghost that I don't think was ever acknowledged, and just an insane amount of things going on in this game, and I can't stress enough just how solid and well built everything feels. Every system in this game feels like a fully realized idea, with a lot of time spent thinking about the best way to implement mechanics that make the most sense and feel the best. From the inventory management to accessing your tools to the building and decorating system to cleaning up, everything is just really well done. I'm so impressed with this game. There's also plenty of DLC, with more being developed at the time of recording this video, so the devs are still very much around and working not only on the base game, but continuously adding things. It's one of the standouts in the entire genre in my opinion, and one that anybody who has the slightest interest in these types of games needs to check out. You will not regret buying this game. Here we have Waterpark Simulator. It actually works out really well that I played this one right after Gas Station Simulator because it's a prime prime example of what I was talking about with how premium these games feel or don't feel. And Waterpark Sim does not feel premium at all. It feels very much like every other simulator game that feels sort of hastily thrown together in the way that it plays, but it's also actually very fun. I know it sounded like we were heading in a negative direction here, but we're not. I really like Waterpark Simulator, and prior to this video, I already had over 40 hours in it. This is very much one of those simulator games that is made to feel chaotic and overwhelming. You will almost never have an opportunity to just stand around while the park is open. Guests in the park will constantly be leaving puddles of water, dropping trash, shitting and pissing everywhere, drowning, sneaking in without paying, and that's not even the half of it. You'll also have to be on top of your trash cans filling up, every single item in your park losing durability and cleanliness constantly, selling tickets, managing your stands, and much, much more. You will be very busy playing Waterpark Simulator. All that being said, it's decently laid out and the progression feels okay. It's not the smoothest, but it's solid enough. You can eventually start hiring employees as you might expect to make your life a little easier, and a little tip once you do start hiring them, they won't continue working after the park is closed at the end of the day, but if you sleep, they will work before the park opens. So if you want to work on the layout of your park or decorate and are getting annoyed that your employees are just standing around, just know they will work in the morning before you open. I do remember always feeling like the game needed to let us have more employee slots. I don't know if that's been changed or not since I played, since I only played for 2 hours this time. I do know the devs have been very active with this one and they seem to have a lot of big plans moving forward. Even since I played, they've added quite a bit. I know custom slides were on the agenda, but I don't know if they're here yet. For the rest of the review, I'm going to show a little tour of my nearly completed 5-star park for anybody interested. As you can see, the park can end up being huge. There are quite a few different slides and pools and decorations and things, and the building is actually surprisingly good. I really like that it'll let you clip decorations into each other or other things. It really opens up what's possible if you're willing to take the time. This decoration in my tiki area is all just random plants and rocks, but it came together to look like its own individual thing. You can really let your creativity run with this game, but it can also feel a little overwhelming when you have the entire park unlocked and you have to fill up this giant space with no real guidelines or anything. It's not really a criticism for the record, just something to be aware of. So again, it's definitely a little clunky, it's chaotic and aggravating at times, but it also turned out to be one of the more fun simulator games I've ever played. It's rare one holds my attention as long as this one did, and I think it's in large part due to the large nature of the project, how much control I had over everything, and how good the building is. There are also a lot of fun Easter eggs in the way of references to different content creators, perhaps the most popular in relation to the game itself being Queso. It's a really solid sim with a cool concept and very active developers, so with all that in mind, I definitely think you should give this one a look if for some reason you haven't yet. Up next is probably my favorite from the entire video, and that's Schedule 1. The dev really just nailed everything about this game in my opinion. It's a really smooth play in both function and progress. Everything makes so much sense and it's just insanely addictive, which I guess is fitting for this game in particular. You'll drop hours in this game without realizing where the time has gone. It so gradually opens up and gives you more to do while always having things to achieve in such a well-designed way. It's just fantastic. You've surely heard of this one by now, but it's worth noting the developer is no less active now than during the peak of this game's popularity. Even since I played closer to when it came out, so much quality of life and content has been added to this game that make it so much bigger, and apparently there was recently an update that added mushrooms that I will probably have to work my way to. It's really satisfying to start out with basically nothing and gradually work yourself up to where you're running an empire spread across several locations and employees and dealers and just a ridiculous amount of stuff to work out. I personally find it very satisfying later in the game to try and come up with a design for my operations that runs smoothly and efficiently, because you don't really have any blueprints. You just have open spaces to fill up, and I always get a kick out of that. Once you unlock mixing, it gets really fun to try and see what kinds of concoctions you can cook up and how they affect people that you sell to. There are new properties to purchase, new vehicles, dealers to recruit, new products to discover and mix, different parts of town to unlock, and again, plenty more content on the way from a developer who really just seems to love their job and this game, and it just keeps getting better. It's also got multiplayer, and it's really well done. It adds a whole new layer to how much fun there is to be had. There probably isn't much more for me to say about this game that hasn't already been said, but it's an absolute must-play if you haven't tried it yet. Next, we have TCG Card Shop Simulator. This one is a lot slower paced and a bit more chill than I remembered it being when it came out. I'm not sure if I'm just remembering my experience differently or if the game has been tweaked over time, but either way, it's still a very solid game. It almost feels like it's a little too slow in the early game, but it makes up for it by giving you the collection aspect. In addition to all the things you'd expect to encounter running a card shop in a simulator game, like expanding the shop, ordering inventory, organizing the layout, and so on, you also have a binder for cards that you can work to fill up. And just like in every popular card game, there are some cards that are incredibly rare. And it's honestly really fun to just rip packs in this game. You'll find yourself really having to work to strike a balance between selling enough of the packs you buy to make a profit and just wanting to open every single pack that comes into your store. You can also sell cards individually individually, which adds a whole new element. You could theoretically spend a few bucks on a box of packs and open a card that by itself will sell for thousands of dollars. The good news here is you get to scratch that itch without actually going into debt in real life. The card game here is pretty expansive. There's not only a surprising amount of cards, but also different sets and a pretty wide variety of other products to fill your store with. The devs seem to have been pretty active, slowly checking things off their roadmap that was established way back when the game came out. One really cool thing that's been on the roadmap for a while that they must still be working on is making the card game in the game playable, which will also add an entirely new layer to the gameplay. You're also able to host tournaments and events in your shop. The shop can end up getting pretty big. There are employees available for hire and different things you can put in your store to automate everything a bit more, so that as you grow, you're still able to stay on top of things, or let's be honest, just hide in the back and rip packs. It's a pretty solid game, and if you're someone who loves to collect things and gets a kick out of the hunt for the rarer items, you will definitely love this one. Even aside from the collection aspect, it's a really good, well-made, well-paced simulator game, so the rest of it is really just icing on top. Moving along, we have Supermarket Simulator, and this was one of, if not the first simulator game like this I played a while back, and it still holds up. It definitely shows its age in some ways. Some of the newer games like Bookshop Simulator have definitely done a lot more in the way of quality of life, but it's still very fun and solid, and most of the issues are pretty minor things. One example would be that for most of these games that have you setting prices on products, there are typically buttons now for market value with percentage increases, and in Supermarket Simulator there are not. At least not in the first 2 hours. Maybe there's an upgrade later that enables it or something, but I don't remember from when I played originally, and I had to delete my original file to play the first 2 hours again, so yeah, out here making big sacrifices for the video. It's not particularly chaotic or hard to make progress. It all feels very smooth, and basically as long as you're trying it all, you will make a profit and be able to move forward. One thing that I don't remember being a part of this game is the big map. There's actually a little city you're in with different locations. I assume at some point those become more important, but I didn't really have anything to do with them in my time playing. There are also vehicles you can purchase to get around better, but again, that wasn't needed in my first 2 hours, so I can't speak much about it. The systems here are all very solid. There's a very wide variety of products and shelving and items to place in your store. As you grow, you'll unlock the ability to hire staff and start focusing on other things. And one really nice thing is that you can manage everything from your PC, including setting your prices, which is great. I know there's a pretty long rollout of items that add quite a bit of quality of life as you play, and part of me is very interested in seeing just how big you can make your store in this game. I also have to mention these NPCs. Seems like everyone in this town has had some sort of hip injury, and I don't know what the deal is with this lady. I will also say the game does play very smooth. It's got a much more solid feel than I remember it having. So considering all the new things and the fact that the game seems to feel and look better, it appears the devs have been fairly active with this one, and that's always nice to see. I could definitely see myself popping back into this one and even getting hooked on it again just for the sake of seeing how big the store can get, and what the point in the city map and the other points of interest actually is. There's nothing wrong with this game. It's definitely worth a play if you want to run a grocery store. Next, we have Wrap House Simulator. This one surprised me a lot, especially considering how much the early game lacks. There's virtually no tutorial, so figuring out everything you need to do and getting rolling is a bit of a slog. But once you get the general idea, it picks up quite a bit. The gameplay loop itself is actually very fun, but the game does need some work in my opinion. I found myself totally uninterested in buying any of the upgrades. They all just felt very unnecessary. The same goes for the employees. They seem to be performing their jobs perfectly, so I saw no reason to need an upgrade. Maybe over time when the shop gets bigger, those things matter more, but I think that's part of what I'm saying. There needs to be a smoother line of progression and upgrades early on that actually feel like they're going to change something for me. Otherwise, I don't really have anything to aim for aside from make shop bigger, and that's not always enough. I think maybe a way to achieve this would be to not just immediately drop me in a huge kitchen that has multiples of everything I need. If I started in a small, limited kitchen and part of what I needed to upgrade was the size of the kitchen and the cooking appliances available to me, I'd feel a little bit more compelled to invest, but you just immediately have everything you could ever need to be successful. The only difficult thing about this game is figuring out what to do in the very beginning. As for the actual gameplay though, again, surprisingly smooth and fun. If you have any restaurant experience and understand the value of prep work, your actual shifts will be very easy, especially once you hire some workers. I do think there's quite a bit of potential with this game, which is nice as it's one of the less expensive games on the list. I would like to see some substantial updates and perhaps a bit of an overhaul to the tutorial and the overall early game experience so that upgrades feel a little more necessary and there are more interesting things to progress into, but this one actually isn't bad at all. I'd recommend checking it out. And here we have Deconstruction Simulator, another game that suffers a bit from a slow and moderately annoying start in my opinion. Initially, you'll notice the cutscenes and the voice acting and think, oh wow, this is looking really good. I will say, if you're expecting this to just be Wrecking Ball Simulator, it's far from that, and that's going to tie in a bit with the slower start I just mentioned. You're starting a business that has a lot more going on than just demolishing houses and buildings, and the freedom it offers you to play the game as tediously as you'd like is actually really cool. And to be clear, I don't use the word tedious here as a negative. You can dismantle almost everything in the game, from appliances to furniture to the actual homes themselves. The more you decide to salvage without destroying, the more opportunities you have to sell these items from your warehouse and make extra money. And that whole system is so much deeper and interesting than I would have thought. thought. Now again, the game felt like it had a bit of a slow start. I even said to my Twitch chat that it looked like we were in for a long 2 hours. And I have to say, the main character talking to himself constantly throughout the tutorial is pretty annoying.
The owner's name is Ricky. He went to jail and
I
his property
don't
was taken
give
over by
a shit.
Look what you did, you little jerk.
Okay, well, that's going to be enough of that. I understand the point of it, and you can always just mute it, but damn, he be yapping. The difference in the way I felt about the game for the first 90 minutes or so versus how I felt in the last 30 minutes is pretty wild. I was pretty indifferent up until the last 30 minutes, and then something clicked and I just became very invested. I really wanted to keep collecting things to sell from the warehouse and spend more time dismantling houses and filling up brick pallets and small items containers and really just trying to make the most of each contract I accepted. I think this would be an excellent game to kick back and sort of zone out to, as even some of the smaller contracts still have a lot to do if you're just interested in spending the time to do them. But again, you don't always have to. Sometimes the job is just as simple as destroy the home and everything in it. So if you want to just play House Destroyer Sim, you can. There also seems to be a lot of depth here to upgrade and expand into, and I'm really curious to see just to what extent you can grow this business and how big the jobs get. The idea that at some point you might start getting jobs bigger than houses is really enticing. The gameplay is very smooth, it's pretty intuitive, and there's a respectable amount of attention to detail here. I'm very impressed. This surprisingly ended up being one of my favorites from the entire video, and I will definitely keep playing it. I'd recommend you give this one a look if what you're seeing does anything for you, but just remember you're not going to be swinging a wrecking ball anytime soon, and maybe just mute the tutorial. And that's going to do it for this video. Thank you for watching. I'd be very interested in hearing if I put any new games on your radar or convince you to try one that you've been on the fence about, and if you have any suggestions for games like this that I didn't cover this time, please let me know in the comments. There are so many of these games. I will definitely be doing another simulator games video in the future, and I'll be choosing most of what I play from what you guys suggest below. If you liked this video, I have several others for different genres, so check out the playlist and see if anything tickles your fancy. Subscribe if you wanna, click like if you wanna, and have a good day whether you wanna or not, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.